what the scene looks like over the skies of Haifa. Let's in fact get you some breaking updates that have just come in, where Haifa is under attack from Iranian ballistic missiles. And from the looks of it, it does look like a pretty large attack that the Iranians have again carried out. These are images that are being posted by the IRNA state agency. This is an Iranian state media agency. And the Iranian missiles were seen over Haifa in northern Israel. The Iran state television has said that the Iranian missiles and drones have hit certain military targets in Israel. So these are some images that the IDF has also posted about the same missile attack. We need to still wait and watch as to what in fact has been hit by the Iranians. And we have with us Professor Blaxland on our broadcast. Professor, we were talking about, how this war looks like it is in its initial phases. And you were telling us as to how the Israelis, over the course of the last 20-odd months, ever since that crisis, that war broke out in the Gaza Strip, has been degrading the proxies that Iran has had. Hamas, Hezbollah, and even in Syria, with the ouster of Bashar al-Assad, one of the allies that Iran had in that region does not exist anymore. And now the state of Israel is in a direct confrontation with Iran. Now, the capabilities of Iran are very different from the capabilities of any of the proxies that it had been arming before. This is a nation which has a sophisticated bunch of these missiles in its disposal, which it is using at this moment. So when Netanyahu started this Operation Rising Lion, do you think you'd have taken into account the scale of the destruction these Iranian missiles could actually wreak on the cities within Israel? Because looking at what transpired in Tel Aviv yesterday, those were some unprecedented images. How much pain do you think the Israelis can in fact take, considering this is going to be a long, drawn-out war?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The pain tolerance from the Israelis has been remarkable, actually, so far. And the bottom line is that they don't really have too much of an option here. The Iranians have been declaring that their mission is to see Israel destroyed, and that's been the case for decades, and it has resounded to this day. And the nuclear technology efforts that they have invested in recent years have been declaratory in terms of being focused on Israel. So Israel has an understandable, deep-seated fear about letting Iran proceed. So I guess there's a point here at which there's the trade-off. How much pain do you tolerate in order to preclude an even worse fate from happening? And I think that's probably the equation the Israeli government has come to, that they needed to act. I think it's really interesting to reflect for a moment here on the fact that Iran has been getting a lot of support behind the scenes from China and Russia. This isn't broadly talked about very much, but there is a real concern that this could actually spread. We know the United States has been actively supporting Israel. The United States has been actively talking about the need for Iran to change paths, and over the years has been associated with campaigns to see a government change in Iran itself. So the stakes are getting higher for everybody, for Israel, for Iran, but also for its main allies, both our main allies, China and Russia, and of course the United States for Israel. In the mix, of course, is the situation in Yemen, which, despite America's best efforts in recent months of trying to degrade and decapitate Houthi leadership and their missile stockpiles,
right,
they evidently are still firing missiles from Yemen towards Israel. That's been happening in the last few days, apparently. So this presents a significant challenge for Israel that it cannot really realistically in the long run handle without the United States support. So the question now is, how much does China and Russia want to back up Iran over its position, mindful that Iran has been very supportive of Russia, particularly with the supply of drones that have been devastating in their effectiveness against Ukraine.
I think that's a very crucial point that you've raised there, considering the manner in which geopolitics is not just about one thing, but has many different aspects to it. You mentioned about the Houthis in Yemen, and information that has just come in, where the Israeli media now says that the Israeli military recently attacked Yemen, attempting to assassinate a senior Houthi figure. This of course, is the information that has just come in, and talking about how the Iranians could, of course, be getting some amount of assistance from the Chinese and also most definitely from the Russians. Do you think the United States and Israel have missed an opportunity here? Because the Iranians were in negotiations, in direct talks with the Americans. The Iranians wanted to strike a deal. They said they were negotiating in good faith. But then on day 61 of an ultimatum that was given by Donald Trump, the Israelis staged Operation Rising Lion. You know, the key negotiator of the Iranians has now been killed in a decapitation attack by the Israelis. So the Iranians are now turning around and saying that perhaps the Americans were never negotiating in any good faith. With that being the case, do you think this is now pushing Iran much more into the side of the Chinese and the Russians, where these two bigger powers can actually use the Iranians to hurt American interests and Israeli interests in the Middle East?
So, firstly, there's never been much good faith to share around in this context at all. And the question about what can happen from here, Iran has already been benefiting from the support from Russia and China. And so, you know, the ability to basically support each other in terms of the sales of oil and other goods that are, you know, on trading ban lists internationally, Iran and Russia and China have kind of been scratching each other's back that way, helping out facilitate circumventing Western sanctions. So that's not going to change, I don't think, anytime soon. Whether it's going to be accelerated, let's not forget Russia's got some limitations at the moment. It's seeking to focus on a major offensive to try and convince the West that it's winning in Ukraine, because we know it's not. And China, of course, it's been actively supporting Russia, even though it claims it's not, but we know that it's supplying key precursor materials for many of the weapons and all the systems that it operates, and it's been helping Russia to circumvent many of the Western sanctions. So there's already a lot of collusion, a lot of collaboration. You know, we're seeing war on so many fronts.
Right.
It's in Ukraine, it's in Gaza, it's in Iran, it's in Yemen, and it's, you know, there's threat of war on the eastern end of the Eurasian landmass. It's, you know, back in the day, we used to say world wars were declared. You know, you'd have presidents and prime ministers declaring the day. It was September the, you know, whatever,
right.
Or the, you know, they'd get on the radio and they declare war. What is this? You know, how would you describe what we're seeing now? This is pretty catastrophic. And the question is, how much this can be contained. Now, there's no question Saudi Arabia, the Arab state, the Gulf states will be very eager to see this contained, and they'll be looking to make sure that this doesn't blow out and blow into their turf. And of course, we know, we've heard reports that, you know, Jordan has been instrumental in facilitating the shooting down of some missiles. Whether that's continuing or not, who knows? There's enormous competing pressures for influence and for support for either side now. It's getting very complicated, and clearly it's not going away.